ranked as a game mode, even if they do a good job of balancing it, it's gonna get stale for people because Overwatch sometimes isn't fun to be a fan of. The same way that, hear me out, League of Legends is, right? League of Legends game is like the worst part about it, but like being a League fan in every other aspect, like the cinematics, the shows, the music videos, like the lore drops you get, the characters, everything else is so exciting. And I think if Overwatch had more about that, there would be less pressure on the ranked system and on tournament modes and all this kind of stuff and gameplay and variety. Less pressure on that stuff to really make up the experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. I mean, Flats, you want to quickly agree before I let Sam chime in?
Honestly, kind of nailing it. Like there's like, okay, I'm gonna be point blank honest. Us little Overwatch creators are like literally tiny. Like we, in the grand scheme of things, I learned that from that Streamer Awards event. We are nobody knows us. We don't exist. But even worse though is we're all basically in this one trick land where we all just have to play ranked, and that's what in Overwatch 1 we were taught to only play ranked because that's all the community cared about. In games like Apex, like people play pubs. Like Asu basically makes his whole brand is going into pubs and just absolutely destroying, and it's hilarious and it's awesome content. We only have ranked. That's it. And even our competitive scene, like Overwatch League, and first off, Overwatch League and ranked and content are completely separate. We're not going to be able to reestablish that with it being on YouTube. We're in different lands at this point. So there is no end game for the ranked content. There is no end game. We're all just in this endless like running around circle. And if ranked sucks, it gets a million times worse, and there's no other options. So Varia's nailing it. Like we can't. There's no lore to talk about. There's no fun things like outside of just being good at video game to talk about. Like it's kind of insane.
Sam, you've been nodding, so I want to let you have your piece. What do you think about all this?
You know, back in the day, I used to be like so into the lore of the game, and I definitely think that that's something that we've kind of missed on, right? Like I heard so many cool things about Arcane and League, and I don't know if you guys, I've never played Dota, but did you guys see the Dota show on Netflix too? It is awesome. It is freaking sweet. It is beautiful. Like the animation of it, like it's awesome. Even Cyberpunk Edge Runners, like that was a fan favorite that just came. I think it won an award actually, at some whatever the anime awards are. And I can agree with that, right? For me, like even like as a very competitive player, I used to be like very into all the stories and like the discussion of heroes. And sometimes, when I hear the heroes talking in game about like what's going on in the Overwatch verse, yeah, I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see the world be built on, because it really was special. Like what made me get the game was the Dragon cinematic, and I think that cinematic was the second best cinematic ever made, because I don't know if anything's ever going to top Skyrim. I don't think anything could ever beat how hyped the Skyrim cinematic was. That was the best cinematic ever made. But I hope to see that, and I think that the community could definitely benefit from more stuff like that. Overwatch is very one dimensional with its interests, I think, right now. Not that that's necessarily not that they've done that interest poorly, in that at least people are playing the game again. Like there's a consistent content coming out, and we're coming out of map pools, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm excited to see. I think this kind of needs to go into Gear 2. I think we're definitely out of the honeymoon phase, and we're heading into Gear 2. And I think they did well to launch in the first 6 months, but I'd love to see them step it up and spice it up, get some heat in there going forward. So I agree. I think there's definitely a lot more to do.
I think to try and devil's advocate here, I think the devs would say that they have released a lot of lore, but I think it would be it's more buried. It's like it's a lot of like novels, short stories, comics, stuff that
This
perhaps
isn't canon.
yeah, or the Lover Watch, as Farid is pointing out too, which is like which was
But they
really
weren't
fun.
canon?
But
Yeah, they
Lover
were
Watch is
very
not.
much.
Lover Watch is not. No.
Oh,
Go ahead, Freya.
okay.
Oh yeah.
Freya, you want to elaborate? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my fear is like they're putting all of their eggs into. They're doing the same thing they did when Overwatch 2 was in the works, and then there was like that big content drought for like a year and a half, where they're putting all their baskets into Overwatch 2 PvE, and they're like, this is the big lore drop and everything. But what if it's like a situation of like, what if it's like a Borderlands game where you play it once, and then it's done, right? And you've got everything you've got, and then you just watch the rest of the cinematics or like voice lines on YouTube because you're like, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
I agree. I love like because I think the way that you all put it is great. Like it's kind of buried, right? Like for the Dota show, like which is, by the way, watch it. You have fantastic. Seriously, so good, so good. And Arcane and like the cinematics. I think why Overwatch is so popular. Would you all say that in terms of the lore and the story, the cinematics in Overwatch are like the cream of the crop, like perfect,
Big
like
Yeah.
like those. I would love to see. And I get that's probably high budget. This is way out of my, I'm the kid that got to be in art class. So like, just for context, I think I would love to see some eggs in that basket too. I think it would be really, really sweet with like Arcane. Like you can't tell me they wouldn't nail it. I wouldn't believe you. I just wouldn't believe you. I would love to see that happen. Just some kind of like very forefront out there, watchable, lore content would be freaking sweet. I'd love it personally.
And I'm sure the devs would agree too. And I feel like this is another case of like having to start Overwatch again almost from the ground up. Like I feel like in many ways from the
Yeah.
dev side, it is like Overwatch 2 wasn't just a new game for the show of it. It was literally like a reset for them because I'm guessing like, I think the COVID era and the, Jeff leaving and all that, I think almost that was like a whole moment of upheaval where they had to spend 18 months or whatever just actually restructuring everything in the team. Okay, well we've got to ship this new game, we can't keep working on PvE forever, we got to make PvP. Okay, who's in charge now, like who's doing what now? And I think that for them, I'm sure they are probably like, yeah, we'd love a cinematic we'd love a bunch of cinematics too, Sam. We'd love a Netflix show too, Sam.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
get,
of course.
and I guess like, what do we know? Like, I'm sure we're all like, put it out, and they're probably like, we know, and it's hard, and you don't know about this, that, the other that goes into making it, and budget, blah, blah, blah. But you're right in that they've been trying to give us stuff. They've been trying to give us these, like I said, these comics. There's a lot more voice interactions you got to credit them for. Like, I know they put like
Those are amazing.
10,000. The voice lines are amazing.
Yeah,
We
they're
keep
cool.
finding new ones. They're really, really awesome. And that's, I think, what draws. It's almost like the tease, right? Because they show us like like there's the surface of like these characters interacting and referencing things that we haven't experienced, and it's like that tease because we're like, oh, that sounds so cool. It sounds so cool that you guys did this thing that you're referring to, but like where is it? Where can we see it? Where can we play it? Where can we get our hands on it? So it does almost feel like we're being teased by a lot of lore, and maybe they're doing their best to like give us like whatever they can until the PvE drops, these bigger picture things drop. But you're right in that from the experience of playing the game, we don't get that like wider engagement with Overwatch, right? Like the closest thing we get is when the Play Overwatch Twitter account creates a homing missile that homes in on May, right? Like that's like the closest thing we get to like, whoa, they did something that's like something different. We don't really necessarily have a lot to spend our time on, and that alludes to Flat's point, which is yeah, we don't really have a lot of like I don't know creators who just only play the arcade. I'm honestly Flat. Your like adventures in Mystery Heroes have been like the closest we've had to anyone kind of really diving deep and substantially into the fringe modes of Overwatch. So like, do you feel like that's something we can actually change, or is that like a part of the culture of Overwatch that will always just be like comp grinders?
I mean, the culture can always change, right? Like it takes time, but it's like getting people introduced to that is definitely hard because people like to become like comfy, right? Like if your audience is so used to ranked, they're gonna come in. It happens to me all the time. It's like, is Flats taking a break from ranked? Why is he not playing ranked? Why? Excuse me, streamer, why are you not playing ranked? Why ranked? Hello, streamer. And it's like that. It can be obviously frustrating. It can be like like your people are not going to be happy with this type of content. But at the same time, though, it is better content. Like everything can be solved pretty much by making better content. And if you actually know how to make better content, and like you can kind of feel it, right? Like sometimes it happens with everybody. It's like you have a passion project. There's something you work on. It doesn't do that hot. It's like, wow, it didn't do that great. Why did it not do that great? Was the content not good, or is it not match your audience, right? Like there can be times where you make something that's really, really good content, but maybe it just doesn't hit with them. Like if you make something about like Mystery Heroes, right? I would say Sam, because Sam is, I would say, really much like a rank grinder. Most of the people who watch Sam, I would imagine, mostly want to watch people be really, really, really good at the game and kill things and maybe learn from him because he does a lot of unranked GMs, stuff like that. If you just hop into Mystery Heroes and just start having a good time, they'd be like, well, where's my ranked? You know what I mean? But it's like, Sam you could be the best Mystery Heroes player of all time because you're good at everything. It could be fun. Like, for example, what Emong is doing, and I did it too, was could we get every single ultimate with every single character in one setting, right? And it was all RNG, right? Like, because like it was funny for him because we went 3 sessions without him getting a tracer once, but people loved that. They were like, you know, like holy shit, you can't get tracer. It's so funny, and it like built up to that moment that when he finally got tracer, like everyone. He has it. Wait a minute, it's possible. And then there was one time he got it like a 90% ult chart, like 90% capture point percentage. Like, you know, after the game was about to be over, and it was like, no way, you can't get it now. You know, and those are cool moments. Those are fun moments for people.
Tells a story, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good story, and honestly, storytelling is a big part of content. If you're just playing ranked all day long, it's not really going to do that hot. And also, the reason why I personally want a lot of like stuff like stacking and whatnot is. The culture of Overwatch changed, I would say, around the time XQC became a big streamer in Overwatch. He was a solo queue streamer and then duo queue with like Moxie and stuff. And I actually truly believe that that had a big effect on the culture of Overwatch because Overwatch was a stacking game until around that point in 2018. 2016, 2017, Overwatch was a stacking game. And then around then, like people saw the biggest streamer was always solo queue or duo queue. You know, doesn't want to look boosted, doesn't want to like, you know, like, oh, I like to solo only. And a lot of people mimic that. And actually, even a lot of the pro players that came up, I don't know if you guys saw Dante's tweet like a couple months ago, but he was like, he hates the, like, he was like, the new generation of pros frustrates him because they just sit out of voice the entire time and like never join voice and they don't really try hard. That's true. I can't tell you how many games I play at this point that are silent. No one says a word. And that is not what old Overwatch used to be. So to me, I want stacking back because I get to control my experience and I get to create those stories and those narratives. And that's what makes good content, not me stomping the ladder. I don't want a 5-stack with Emong and Seagull and Jay and Karq or Sam to stomp the ladder. We're going to get rolled 99% of the time. I promise you. But those 1 or 2 games we get where we might win or it's a close win and we all have a good time, that is the stories. That's what's enjoyable. That's what's fun content to make, but also playing ranked at the same time. So I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I feel like we've lost a lot of that type of stuff in Overwatch, and there's just no stories to go to.
You really nailed it. And what people don't talk about, and this makes me really sad to think about, is the amount of like little communities in the Overwatch scene that died when they took out stacking. You know, we used to have like the Get Money Discord. Like we used to have like, there was we called it the IRS stack of like Boostio, Kaluge, and all those guys. And they would just like, because they take all your SR. You know, there was the Last Tim stack. Like there was the Hot Gator Sugar Free stack. You know, there were the Kefri Troll stacks, right? Like the list goes on and on and on. And, you know, those like were just such an important heart and soul of the community. And it really sucks to see that not be there. And it just makes me kind of sad to think about it because look, it's not like at this point, I know the arguments and I get it. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, right? Are we really going to act like the rank's not coin flip right now? Are we really gonna say that it would be, look, if my games are gonna be coin flip anyway, I would rather the latter be in a state where people have heart and they're trying and they're doing the best they can to win. If I'm gonna automatically win or lose a game, I'd rather have that happen, and I think actually would solve a lot of problems. But I'll bring that up in a question form later for you guys because I've been thinking about it a lot. But I think the narrative part is so true. So true. Everyone was able to find I say everyone, but a lot of people were able to find like little communities of friends to stack with and play with, and that's what gaming's about. That's just what it's all about is with your friends and doing it together. And you know, it just makes me really sad to not see that. And here's my point too. Here's what I challenge everybody. Okay, if you don't want us to stack at high level play, apply the same treatment to every single rank too. Because it's true, maybe probably less true in lower ranks, but the double standard there of, only the high rank players can't do it, where most of the content creators reside, like in terms of like the bigger streamers, like that's where everybody is, right?
Sam, there's already an example of this. You want it?
What is it? Go.
So, remember we all complained about the 3900 system in Overwatch 1 and said it was terrible? We all were complaining. We're like, dude, resetting to 3900 literally does nothing because your MMR is still in the background, like 44, 45, 4600. And one of two things either needs to happen. One, you need to lose a bunch of games to realign your SR and your MMR so that you can reclimb. Or you have the Hawk theorem, I'm going to call it, where Hawk was so good, he never really lost many games. So I played a game against Hawk on Hanamura one time where he had 4 diamond players and I had 6 top 500s and we spawn held them on Hanamura. Like,
did he go Hog?
He went Diva, Hog. I think he rolled out Orisa at one point. Got desperate, like you know what I mean? Like there was.
Board.
He tried everything. He probably had an MMR of almost 5,000. You know what I mean? Like, it was probably at the ceiling. And you know what? We said it sucked. We didn't like it. Everyone's like, shut up, stupid creator.
And then they
did it for everybody, and everyone went bananas, and now they're removing it in season 4. That's a perfect example.
Here's our play. Blizzard, apply it to everybody. It's a double standard to only apply it to us and not apply it to the whole ladder. Apply that to the entire ladder, because the people's arguments that stacking makes the games more coin flip, it's true in every rank. So apply it to every rank. I bet it wouldn't last 2 weeks. I give it 7 days. 7 days. 7 days.
I like this a lot.
That's our only angle. Listen, just apply it to everybody. And look, again, I just want to reiterate, it's not perfect, right? But the pros drastically outweigh the cons, and it just is what it is there. I don't know. Like, did you all see the clip I tweeted last night of the Nixel 3 stack, and they got Clank on their team on Paris, and then he charged straight down mid on Ryan and Alt F4 at the start of the game?
I haven't seen that, but before I give my take, I want to give Faria the chance to chime in, because I will try and push back against the stacking propaganda to try and bring some balance here, but lest I be accused of a one-sided debate. But do you have any thoughts that you wanted to chime in?
I completely agree with the idea that it's all about spinning stories and narratives, because my favorite games are the games where, like, I pick one player on the enemy team to just have a death pact with. And it's like, say you're playing on Esperanza and you're Sombra and there's an Echo and you're both fighting for that health pack or fighting for control of that area. And you just, like, you can weave a story out of just targeting that one player, and it makes it so fun. And playing with friends and other creators facilitates that. It facilitates those rivalries where, oh yeah, there's a diva on the enemy team who just keeps eating your goddamn pulse bombs, and you just want to get a stick on her as she's demeching, right? And it's just like, things like that are so fun when you get to have bigger stacks. And yeah, I want to see more of that.
To the point of, like, well, okay, Blizzard, why is the double standard? Why does it not apply to everyone if you can apply it? I guess the counter argument would be the different, and I think Gavin, I remember last time he's actually in chat somewhere. I don't want to put him on the spot, so don't chime in, Gavin, unless you have the mental fortitude of an absolute block of steel. But
He does.
I remember last time we were talking. He said, "Well, what do you do with the alpha stack, right? What do you do at the highest end?" Typified by the New York Excelsior stack. All the older Overwatch OGs are like the New York Excelsior stack, the like Jonak Carpe stack that like terrorized everybody. The difference between, like, when you're in plat, you can find someone higher ranked to match the like, let's say, the best plat stack. You can still pull the diamonds in to match the plat stack, right? But the problem for the high end of the matchmaker is when the New York Excelsior stack, literally the best stack that could possibly be assembled, is playing, who do you put to just guarantee they lose against them, right? Like, that is, I think, the reason why they don't allow it at the highest end. Yes, Sam.
Here's my answer. Ready? So first of all, if we remember, again, AL players contractually could not stack more than 3. And in 5v5, the league could just say you guys could only duo, which means the only people who could stack, you could even make the same rule for contenders players if you really wanted to, I guess. But you know what your answer is? You pit them against the AL players. And I guarantee you the AL players will probably have a better time playing that game than having Hawk get 4 diamonds, right? Because they all don't play the game anymore. And I've talked to many contenders players and AL players, and they just don't try and rank. They don't care. Right? Because you know what? It's better than getting the Diamond 1 player who just runs the game down and it's instantly over. Right? And it's the idea that you have to somehow punish everyone, especially at the highest level of play, right? For a niche situation that I'm not trying to say that there's a right answer or that it's perfect. Again, totally acknowledge it. It just doesn't function better. And let's say, give it that point, SVB. I'll give you that fault. That is a much smaller problem to have than having absolutely zero narrative and content creation abilities and storylines behind what high level ranked is. And I want to give him credit too here. Look at what's happened with the Pro AM. This is the most interesting competitive Overwatch that I've seen since GOATS meta, in my opinion. Right? And that's because a narrative has been allowed to be built of the contenders teams, where everyone on Reddit all this time said, there's no way contenders teams could beat AL teams. They never saw the scrim codes, right? Listen, back in the day, I have some scrims of even me whipping on some AL teams, right? We just beat Vegas in the World Cup. Shout out to those guys. I hope they do well this season. But, like, finally we got to see some narrative and some spunk in that at a high level play. And we want to talk about the gap between AL and like the average consumer base. right? It's because you can't build any narratives on high level play anymore. You just can't. And it's very boring for the person to watch, just a bland version of ranked, which is what this is. And it's just that simple. So even if we concede that point, which I'm not willing to, but this could go on forever and I don't want to get on that, it's not better off. It's just not.
Mm-hmm. And just for clarity, Gavin says, I said it on J3 and SK stream, but we know not being able to play with your friends and tell those stories like Flats of Free said sucks. And we do have a plan to let GMs play together that we're working on, but not in regular competitive yet. So
Yeah.
I
Scary,
think it's it's totally fair to have like a compromise. I think because it is a philosophical like again any game that has stacking at the highest levels has this sort of either people hate it or people love it, or like either they hate it or they don't have it, they want it, right? Like that's usually how it goes. It's like we had Overwatch 1 and people like the narrative was people were complaining, then we lost it and now people are like we want it back. So
It's
it
fine to try
always kind
stuff.
of
100%.
yeah.
It's fine to try stuff. Trial and error.
So hopefully we can find that balance. I want to bring up the pro am since Sam brought it up now. Flats Free, did you guys watch it or did you have any interest in it before I kind of set it up?
I heard about it. I heard about some. I heard about Infected taking the shock to town. That kid's awesome. It actually, like, this might sound really kind of weird, but it actually is kind of really cool as a streamer and someone who plays like a lot of ranked and stuff like that to bump into like a lot of these kids when they're like kind of young and like they're like literally just like they're still in school and I think he still is, but like they're literally like just playing ranked every day. They're just like everyday people. And then like a year later, like they just been grinding like crazy, and now they're taking on Overwatch League teams and popping the off. That's so cool. Like it's almost like prideful. It's like they grow up so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you used to see in ranked when they were like, what do you think the Hot Gator Sugar Free stack was? They came from console and they came in here, invented goats, and then went and rolled everybody and beat Fusion University. And guess what? You would log on the game and you'd see a streamer playing the Hot Gator Sugar Free stack. And guess what? It was entertaining. I hate to bring it back up, but that's the kind of narratives that happen all the
You're
time.
not wrong. People forgot that. Sam, that was over 3 or 4 years ago. Like a time capsule at this point.
God damn.
I wasn't even a streamer when those were going on. Think about that.